to become.
Go ahead, Sister Peggy.
Yeah, because he kept talking about the word processed. He says, when you're processing, that's the same as when we are, that could be very similar to the processing in Dianetics. So he says, don't take it for granted, mother. Don't take it for granted. Whatever thought that you have, just go with it. And I said, yeah, you go with all the thoughts that you have because you're the one
Hmm.
that's coming up with it.
Yeah, that's interesting. That's interesting. It's funny that you're saying that because what I try to do before the meetings, I try to just find some quiet and just kind of get my mind to just relax a little bit. Um, I'll probably go into depth with this idea at another time, Allah willing. But I was looking at because it says lesson number one lays the base of our work today and gives the student a clear knowledge of himself and his heavenly home, the best part of the earth. And then as I'm sitting there, I was just kind of like meditating. Allah teaches man by the pen what man know not. So I'm looking at this. I'm saying, what if lesson number one? Because if you look in lesson number one, question number one talks about the devil being settled on the planet, not being settled on the best part of the planet Earth, correct? Y'all with me? Question number two is talking about Musa. Question number three is talking about Columbus. So I was looking at each lesson in lesson number one and looking at the key figures. And then I was looking at them as if they were valences. And then I asked myself the question, what if each of these individuals and each of these lessons represent different aspects of ourself? When you look at question number four, that's where we're introduced to Yaqub. Question number five is when we're talking about the original man who was called Jabez, Salem, and Ariel, correct? And Jesus was buried in Jerusalem. So I'm looking at each lesson, I'm looking at the key figures. I'm like, each lesson is teaching us about different aspects of our own self. And then specifically, this is what sometimes the first thing in the morning, as soon as I wake up, a question pops in my head. I'm like, okay, that's what I got to study today. So I looked at question number three. Why did we let half original man Columbus discover the poor part of the planet Earth? Y'all with me? Everyone following? I got some people on mute, but I hope they can hear me. Sister Tina, assalamu alaikum, Sister Tina. She might be doing something.
Yes, sir. We can hear you.
Okay. So let's look at that question for just a split second, and then we'll get into the lesson because there's a great, at least in me, because I love math concept I want to share with the believers today. But this is just something for us to think about. That lesson says, because the original man is the God and owner of the earth and knows every square inch of it, and has chosen for himself the best part. He did not care about the poor part, correct? That would imply that the poor part and the best part belong to Allah, belong to the original man. So the original man knows every square inch of it. So he knows every square inch of the poor part. He knows every square inch of the best part. But he let Columbus discover the poor part, correct? Y'all with me?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So when you look at that on a gradient scale, the best part we can say is 3.0 and above, right? Or we'll say the best part. We'll say the best part. We'll start at 2.5 and go up. That's the best part. The poor part would be 2.0 and below. Can we agree on that?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So now The original man is the owner of both parts. But he let Columbus discover the poor part. As I was looking at that, I'm thinking, okay, the original man knows both parts, but he chose the best part. But there's three personalities in that question. The original man who chose the best part. You have Columbus that chose the worst part. But then you have the Indians who were exiled into the worst part. That means they didn't choose. They were forced to go into exile, correct? You don't choose exile, yes?
Yes, sir.
I was looking at that on a gradient scale where before we came into the teachings, we were exiled in the worst part.
Brother Lukman,
Mhm.
I just wanted to say something right there. Hold that thought.
Okay.
Number 3 talks about the poor part, and both words are capitalized, as in best part in number 3. Number 1 talks about the worst part, where it's a small w, it's not capitalized. So there's a difference, and I said I was going to study more on the difference, because we say that a lot. We say we don't care about the worst part, but it's not the worst part, it's the poor part that we don't care about. So there's a difference, but I'm not quite sure the difference there. So I wanted to study that more. So it's very interesting that you're talking about this, because there's a difference. So I just wanted to say that, because you're starting to say the worst part we don't care about, but it's actually the poor part.
Thank you. There's a difference. Okay, that's got to be studied. Thank you for that, Sister Tina. So let me make
yes, sir. Thank you.
Let me follow my language. So now the original man, he chose the best part. Columbus chose the poor part. The Indians were exiled in the, if we can use, we'll use language, poor part. So there's three things here. There's a choice for the best part, a choice for the poor part, and then being exiled in the poor part. And then as I was looking at that, Sister Jacqueline and Sister Belinda, you came to mind, because I was thinking the worst part could be below tone 0.0, because that's where all of us were before the minister found us, correct? And if you understand the sub-zero tone scale, and then you look at those different levels, that's where we were, because we were hiding, we were owning bodies, we were controlling bodies, we were doing all those things because we didn't have a knowledge of self. Below 0.0, to me, that is where Jesus is buried in Jerusalem. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So then when the minister found us, now we have a decision. We can choose the best part, or we can choose the poor part. So there's three levels. But before coming into the teachings, we were all in the poor part, or we could say the worst part of the poor part, if that makes any sense.
Yes, it does.
Could that be the worst part? But the blessing is, even though Columbus chose the poor part, he still found the Indians there who were exiled 16,000 years ago from India. They are original people. This could teach us that even though we have made bad decisions, there were lessons that we had to learn in making those bad decisions, so we can begin to make the right decision. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir. That's right.
Does everyone see how lesson number 3, if we look at that lesson as an equation and we plug ourselves in as Columbus, now lesson number 3 becomes one like an auditing. Go back to the beginning, go over it again, and pick up whatever additional data you can contact, but place yourself in that lesson.
Yes, sir.
Why did people have a hard time to civilize the devil? Okay, well, first of all, because he was a savage. Savage means a person that's lost the knowledge of himself and is living a beast life. But then the problem is Musa was half original. Now, let's put ourselves in that question. Why do we have a hard time to civilize our devil? Our devil is savage, and we're trying to attack it with half knowledge. Now we're placing ourselves in that equation. And then I noticed that when you go through question number 1 to question number 7, you're going through taking Jerusalem from the devil. Why does the devil keep our people illiterate? Why does he call us Africans? Why does he keep us apart from his social equality? Okay. But then when you get after number 7, then you get to number 8. I believe 8 is why did Musa, I mean, not Musa, why does Muhammad and any Muslim murder the devil?
Number 8, no, sir.
Number
Number 8,
eight is, oh, go ahead.
why does
Sister
the devil
Tina.
keep our people apart from his social equality?
Okay, I mixed those two up. That's perfect. So 1 through 8 is giving us aspects of that poor part. Does that make sense? But then number 9, where Muhammad teaches the devil, right?
Yes.
Is that right? And then number 10,
Yeah, why does
I believe is why does Muhammad and any Muslim murder the devil?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so now we're getting into a teaching to counteract what's below that tone scale. And then when you get to question 11, I believe 11 is, have you not learned that your word shall be bond regardless of who or what, correct?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
So when you go from 1 through 8, here you have 8 dynamics of insanity. 9 and 10 is teaching and murdering. And then when you go 11 and above, that shows the effects of what happens when we apply the teaching, making the word bond. What is the meaning of FOI? What is the meaning of captain and lieutenant? Question number 14. So can you see how 1 through 14 is like a gradient scale?
Yes, sir.
Mm-hmm.
If
Yes,
it's a
sir.
gradient
Yes,
scale,
sir.
if it's a gradient scale, then we could say it's a type of processing.
Yes, sir.
Where look at the devil, look at Musa, look at Columbus, look at those as different valences. Because when we settle on the worst part, is it us that's settling on the worst part, or is that a valence? So when we're acting other than our own self, can we say we're acting like the devil? We're acting like Yaqub. No, let me say it this way. We're dramatizing the devil. We're dramatizing Yaqub. We're dramatizing Musa. We're dramatizing Columbus. Could we say that?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
And then each of those lessons actually becomes a form of processing that if we memorize it, and I've noticed this just in my personal experience, I've noticed that if I sit away from everything, turn off the TV, put the phone down, and just chew on a lesson, go over it, information comes out. I go back to the beginning, go over it again. Guess what? I pick up additional, I learn more about that lesson. Go back to the beginning, go over again, pick up more data. So each lesson to me is processing. And if we go through 1 through 14, and that's like a gradient scale, we can now see life from 3 perspectives. There's the best part of life, there's a poor part, but then there's a worse part. Thank you, Sister Tina, for that observation. And we have the power of choice. And that's what self-determinism is all about, correct?
Yes, sir.
All right, go ahead, Sister Tina.
Yes, sir. Speaking of that power of choice, in number 3, where it talks about not caring about the poor part, we were talking about that once before in your class, and I started studying that and looking at myself, because we the minister told us about Columbus and that he was half original, he was half learned. Remember that?
Mm-hmm.
Columbus was half learned. And that's what made him half original, you know, in the fireside chat he had with us. And so it made me think about, like you said, we let Columbus settle on the poor part. He settled on that. He was half learned. He didn't really have all his information straight. And that's how we do as individuals. We'll settle on the poor part of someone because we don't have all the information straight. And a person that is on the best part, settling on the best part, will look at that person settling on the poor part of them and let them settle there, you know, and will, you know, because if they're fixed, they think they know you, but they really don't. But we pray that they'll learn better, you know, like the minister. We look at the minister, all the people that have settled on what they think is the poor part of him, you know, but yet they come to him in the dark to seek his counsel, to ask for favor, you know, and he don't speak about them evil, you know, in public. So it just makes me think of how much of Rahman and Rahim we have to have in ourselves to allow people to settle on the poor part of us because they don't have all the information. You know, it ain't their fault. They just don't have all the information. You know,
they don't know every square inch.
They don't know every square inch. There you go. Yeah.
So now,
and that will widen our love. That increases our love because we wind up having patience for those that will do that will settle on the poor part of us, you know, because they don't know like Allah knows. So we depend on Allah, you know. Yes, sir.
So here's another rule that comes out of lessons that comes to mind as you're talking, Sister Tina. Why were those that were with Yaqub, why were they successful? And the lesson teaches us is because whatever he told them to do, they did it, correct?
Yes, sir. That's right.
Okay. Now let's take that same lesson and ask ourselves this question. Could we say the reason why we have been unsuccessful with the lessons, because we know that the lessons are not the problem, because the Most High Elijah Muhammad has evolved into a higher being now, correct? He is,
yes, sir.
He has been manifested. He has evolved into a God next to the God, we could say. But now, could we say that all these years we've been attacking the lessons with half knowledge? And the minister gave us the other half. So the question is, why is it that we haven't been successful and we have the same lessons that we have the same question the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad had? Why did he evolve and why did we not? Answer. Because we have not done everything that we've been told to do. The Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad, everything that he was told to do, he did it, correct?
Yes, sir.
Have we done everything that the minister has told us to do?
No, sir.
Emphatically no.
well, brother Lukman, what you spoke about in the beginning, the minister, he said, how strong is the foundation? Can we survive? And he talked about getting back to the basics. And the basics are the teachings of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, the books. You know, getting back to that. So what you spoke about this morning in regards to prayer, that is wow, because that's a commandment. That's a
Mhm.
command.
Mhm.
You know, it's in two parts. The fraud part of it is obligatory. The 4
Mhm.
steps, that's obligatory.
Mhm.
It's a command. And it's like it's so simple when you think about it, but it's something that's so hard for us to do because we are not used to submitting in that way.
Mhm.
But Allah demands strict obedience. So the ritual leads us to what the ritual represents,
Mhm.
which is obedience. It's like, whew. When you were saying that this morning, I was saying, wow, yeah.
I would like to, let me see if I can find this video real quick. Well, this is a quick video. It's maybe like 30 seconds long. And then what we will do is we will start the PowerPoint. Let me get to this video. It's a quick video of the minister. I think I have it right here. Where are you at? Go here. Okay, where are you at? There we go. Here. Here. Okay. Let me see if I can pull up this video real quick. So here. Can everyone see my screen?
Yes, sir.
I think I posted it here. Okay, let me go back one. No, I posted it. Where did I post it? Oh, here we go. Okay.
Islam is like pillars that uphold something. And when you violate the pillars, you're knocking out the very foundation of the faith that you have. We have it in the general orders. You know, you walk your post. In what kind of manner? What kind of manner? Yeah, you say it right. Hell, you ain't doing it. What you mean? I'm walking my post. No, you ain't. What post? Can't be this post. You're doing this all right. But this is not the post. The real post that you are guarding against attack is your own soul that has been revived and is being revived and restored by the word of God. Don't you know how precious it is to have been dead mentally yesterday and the truth found you and started you in the process of resurrection? Don't you want to protect that resurrected life in yourself? Well, you got to walk your post. You can't be jiving. You can't be sleeping on your post, and you fall asleep when you don't pray.
Said you fall asleep when you don't pray. All right. All right, family. Any other thoughts, concerns, questions before we get started? All right, let's get into it.
Brother Lukman, I lost connection for a little while. What was the video about?
It was a quick video where the minister's talking about when we don't pray. And basically what he was saying is when we don't pray, so when we fail to do that, and I'm going to paraphrase it. You know how you take a domino and you hit one domino and it causes all the dominoes to fall down? It was like he was saying that
Yes,
when
sir.
when we fail to pray, that will affect everything else in our life. Okay.
Yes, sir.
That one little thing. What I do is I'll resend that out. That way you can have it. I'll resend it on the email so you can have it. And I try to keep a collection of the videos, like the little short excerpts, and just constantly refreshing, because this world is crazy and it'll pull us off it's designed to pull us off our post. But
Yes, sir.
okay, here's the PowerPoint. So God willing, so today what we will do, can everyone see my screen?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
So the question of discussion today is, can an individual be a book? Okay. Can the Holy Qur'an be a demo kit for man and woman? This idea came to mind a little while ago. There's some mathematics I want to share with the believers. Nothing complex. This is considered to be on a level of what's called the higher math, but you're going to be able to understand it. Does that make sense? So don't be fearful of the math. In other words, you're going to be able to understand this. We're not going to go into no heavy equations or nothing like that. We're going to connect the math,
Yes, sir.
lessons, the tech, and make it relevant to ourselves. Now, I'm not too well versed in the AI, but when I typed in, I have a website I go to produce the picture. So when I typed in black man coming out of a book in the universe, this is the picture that it gave me. So the AI does have some good things. So we're going to start with one verse from the Holy Qur'an that says, in the name of Allah, the Beneficent, the Merciful. I, Allah, am the best knower. This book, there's no doubt in it, is a guide to those who keep their duty. So basically, this whole Zoom presentation is kind of connected to this one ayat. And that's Surah 2, verse 2. Now, closing the gap, page 116, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan says this. He says, I believe in my extemporaneous teaching of his teaching that God was already beginning to open up to me the inner or esoteric meanings of the teachings, that it seemed like the other ministers would only teach what he taught. They seemed to be afraid to dig into his words to find all the jewels that were in the word. Now, this reminds me of Brother Fatah, Sister Peggy, because when we dig into the words to find the jewels that were in the word, these are things that Allah is blessing us to find. And it's not changing the teaching, it's just expanding upon the teaching, allowing us to go deeper into the teaching. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Yes, sir.
All of us are here because,
Yes, sir.
we're all here because the minister studied the teachings and then went deeper and found more. Not that the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad wasn't aware that the gold was there, but the scriptures say that he had a knowledge of all things, but he couldn't share all of it to us at one time. That when the Spirit of truth comes, he will teach us into a knowledge of all things, correct? So the minister found his purpose, took his assignment, and that's why we're sitting here. We're here speaking of this wisdom today because the minister did what his assignment dictated that he would do. Then he says, but I call it intellectual cowardice, meaning just repeating information, wanting to be safe, but not wanting to explore the depth of what this man had gotten from God. So I decided I was not going to do that. I was going to dig into the teaching and expose that which God showed me. And I put this here as a starting point for all of us. I think all of us, if we have not already done so, I'm going to assume that as a result of the minister giving us these assignments as far as studying self-improvement, studying the tech, have we all not experienced that we have found the more we dig into the teachings, we found more information?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And Brother Lukman,
Mhm.
didn't the Honorable Elijah Muhammad instruct the minister not to teach it like he said it, but to teach the meaning of what he said?
Matter of fact,
Yeah.
what was the minister's first assignment?
It was to put it in that fine language.
That's
that
right.
he knows.
Put it in that fine
Yeah.
language that he knows. So that was his first assignment.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, sir.
So in mathematics, that's called a derivative. And a derivative means you start out with an equation. Okay. And we know the minister already told us that scientists speak in the language of formulae, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So what the minister did was, when you look at the minister's exact quote, he says, you know, God is a scientist and he speaks in the language of formulae. He said, then there's another scientist who breaks it down. And then there's a third. He didn't refer, and my opinion is, when he was speaking about the third person, he's talking about the third scientist. In my honest opinion, that's describing the minister, because the minister said that he was the lead wire, that he would take and break down all the complex truths so that even a fool would not be able to not comprehend it, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay, that quote comes from the time of what must be done, the Great War that was done at Mas Mariam. And we've watched that clip a number of times. But when you look at the minister taking the teachings and breaking it down in mathematics, that's called extracting a derivative. It's called differentiation. And it's interesting because the Arabic word for differentiation is furqan. So the minister extracts the derivatives from the teachings. And what a derivative is you're able to understand past, present, and future at one time. So the minister is able to look at the teachings from past, present, and future. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
And then when we all get to the level of studying calculus down the road, the minister would represent what's called the prime derivative or the first derivative. When we take the minister's teaching and we go deeper into what he taught or is teaching, that's called a second derivative. Okay, so there's a mathematical structure, in my humble opinion, to what the minister teaches, how he does it. There's a mathematics that supports it. So to just repeat what we're taught, the minister says that's called intellectual cowardice. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
So can an individual be a book?
Yes.
I heard the minister teach on this. I can't remember where it was. I wanted to open up this with the actual quote by the minister, but I know that when I'm not looking for it, then that's when I'll find it. But have we ever heard the minister say that man is a book?
Yes, I think I do remember that.
Okay. Sister Angela.
Assalamu alaikum, everyone.
Wa alaikum salam, Sister Angela.
I heard the minister say that in our book that will be open on our day of judgment is our mind. So in our mind, we each have a book of ourselves. I heard him say that.
All right, praise be to Allah. I just need a stable datum. That's thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Need a stable datum. So if an individual can be a book, then this ayat, the one we just read, can be studied as an equation or a formula. So we know an equation or formula, really, if you look at it, it's a process or procedure that transforms the data that's given in a problem into the data that is the solution. Does that make sense? We start with a problem, and there's an equation that takes what we have and transforms it into what we know. Does everyone follow that?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna give an example, but so an equation is like a cycle of transformation that's given in the language of symbols. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So here's an example. We know the circumference of the planet Earth is 24,896 miles. Okay, but there's two formulae. There's C, which is C stands for circumference, which is 2 times pi times r. That pi we know is 3.141, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay, and the radius is 1/2 of the diameter. So we took the diameter, we divided it by 2, we get 3,963. That's one formula. Or We don't even divide the diameter by 2. We can just multiply pi times the diameter. Okay. Everyone follow that? We've done this a number of times. So the equation is a transformation from problem to solution. Does that make sense?
Yes.
If anyone got a point where they hit a ridge, stop me, please. So I want to make sure we all flow through this from start to finish. So an equation is a change from unknown to known. So that's what a problem is. When we're studying math and we're given a problem, there's something in that problem that's unknown, correct?
Yes.
And what we do is we take what's unknown, and then based on the data that we're given, we can take what's unknown and transform it into what we now understand. Sister Peggy.
Why did you automatically think of pi? Why do we automatically think of pi in dealing with the circumference?
That is kind of like the universal concept that the majority of people are familiar with, is pi. That number is like 3.141 is, even though individuals might not have a full understanding of different aspects of mathematics, we've all came in contact with that number in one way, shape, form, or fashion. Okay. Sometimes I look at pi as 3.14. And the reason why I look at 3.14, because if you take that decimal point out and you put a division sign between the 1 and the 4, you get 3 1/4, correct? And then we know 3 1/4 equals the amount of time that the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad, in the language of the text, was being audited by the God of the universe, yes? So me personally, when I'm learning formulas and numbers, I try to connect the formulas and numbers to different aspects of the teachings, and that's what helps me to remember them. Okay. But when you go 3.141, I look at the 3 as representing Master Farah Muhammad, the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, and then I rearrange the 141 into 114, and that gives me the number of books in the Holy Qur'an. That's just the way I learn my numbers. That's all.
Okay, thank you.
You're very welcome. Okay, so circumference equals pi times d. So when we multiply these two numbers together, what do we get? We get 24,895.566, and then we round up. Everyone follows that, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So the equation is what is used. So if we had a cycle of action, start, change, stop. Start is a problem. The equation is the process of change, and stop is your solution. Does that make sense? Okay. Problem, equation, solution. That's start, change, stop. So this number 7,926 is transformed into 24,896 miles by way of a mathematical constant. So in other words, in the universe, there's numbers that exist that are like Allah's calling cards. If we can understand certain numbers are like keys that unlock different aspects of the universe. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
Certain numbers are keys that unlock the universe. So if the universe is an outward representation of our own mind, and these certain numbers will unlock the hidden aspects of the universe, then why would not these numbers also unlock hidden aspects of our own self? So as we study mathematics or study our mathematical theology, what are we doing? We're trying to find, maybe there's 17 million keys that we need to turn to let the lion out of the cage, yes? So these numbers, I believe, has something to do with opening up something within ourselves that we're not familiar with yet. But as we go across these numbers, how can I say this? Certain numbers may have the ability to be used in processing to remove our own aberration. Does that make sense? There's something in the numbers that will open up our thinking. Does everyone follow that concept?
Yes, sir.
So I'm looking at our lessons from the perspective of equations. So the lesson provides the input. So in the equation, you have an input, you have the equation itself, and then you have an output. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
So then when we're using the lessons, what equation are we solving? We're trying to solve ourselves. And what is auditing? Auditing, what the auditor is doing, the auditor is trying to find the hidden variables. The auditor is working with the pre-clear to locate the variables and then find the proper input for the variable that will produce the release of charge so that the individual is in that area of their life, they have been reduced. Does that make sense? So the auditor is a mental mathematician. The auditor has equations that the auditor is using. That's the procedure. And in using these equations, has to locate the hidden variables and then solve the problems. So when the pre-clear says, oh my, you know what? Now, if you find a circuit, but now you got to find the person that said it. Or you got to find the person that's in the engram, but you got to find out what it is that they said. So there's many different ways to enter into the engram, correct? But when one can connect the person to the circuit, to the place, to the time, what is the reaction that the pre-clear will produce? The pre-clear will understand, oh, that's when so-and-so said such and such, and then they realize that it wasn't theirs all along. It was something that was said or done to them at another point in time, yes?
Yes.
That's when that problem is solved. And once the problem is solved, what happens? That experience, the emotion is removed, and now it's refiled into standard memory. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
Okay, the same thing happens in mathematics. There's certain problems that they're supposed to be difficult. They're supposed to be hard, but they're hard and difficult for a reason. They're hard and difficult because what they're supposed to do is they're supposed to test our determination to solve them. Once we solve a problem, it's no longer a problem anymore. So now what happens? That problem gets filed in our mind as something that we have mastered, yes?
Yes.
And the more problems we solve, does that not bring us on a gradient scale closer and closer to manifesting the God that's in ourselves?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So when you look at our lessons as equations, if the lesson provides the data that we can use as the input, we are the equation, and we have to solve ourselves, then our understanding and our actions are the output. So we have to understand something about ourselves in order, so we say, okay, I know I have to change that, but then we have to do what? Then we have to manifest the change. We can't just talk about it. We got to what?
Be about it.
Be about it. So when you look at lesson number 1, or the instruction says, lesson number 1 lays the base of our work today and gives the student a clear knowledge of himself and his heavenly home, the best part of the earth. That's where I was thinking about how lesson number 1, when you look at different aspects of those lessons, it's showing us the different valences that are within ourselves, the devil, Columbus, Musa. It's showing us different aspects of ourselves and different things that we're going through that's keeping us aberrated. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
But it's teaching us in a mathematical way. So then I looked at, okay, Ayats are equations. So now if we were to study Ayats as equations and input different concepts ideas and thoughts into the ayat or the equation, what type of outputs or data would be manifested. So now we're not just reading, because remember, there's nothing that says that we shouldn't interpret, but we have to follow the rules of interpretation. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
Okay, we have to be careful and be mindful. It says those in whose hearts is perversity, then we know that we can't interpret or strive to interpret because we're trying to make ourselves look wise or nothing. You know, the goal is, if we find some jewels, Minister Farrakhan has taught us that we don't hide our light under a bushel basket. But then we don't act as though we're the source of the light either, correct?
That's right.
Okay. So if the book that has no doubt in it were a man, then the ayat could be read as this. This man, there is no doubt in him. He is a guide to those who keep their duty. Does that make sense?
Hmm.
Does everyone follow?
Yes, sir. Ooh.
Anyone have any thoughts? Anything that they might see that might not be correct or might be questionable? Okay. So now, by looking at this ayat in this perspective, this man, there's no doubt in him. He is a guide to those who keep their duty. Who comes to mind?
The minister.
Okay. And if the minister comes to mind, then who else comes to mind?
The Honorable Elijah Muhammad.
And
Master
God.
Quran.
okay. So keep that thought in your mind, because we're gonna see how mathematics is actually gonna substantiate what we just said. So, okay, who would this describe today? So we got that. Now, can the Holy Quran be a person? Okay, now, if the Holy Quran was manifested as a human being, or if a human being was a living representation of the wisdom of the Holy Quran, what type of person would that be?
Like a minister.
Like the minister, like the Most High Elijah
The
Muhammad, like
minister.
Master Farah Muhammad, right? Yeah, the minister,
The
the definite article.
Or
Did not
could it be like,
Go ahead, Sister Peggy.
I heard this, I guess, exegesis from a Muslim he's not studying this, but
Mhm.
he's not in a nation. But he was saying that the Holy Qur'an is like an imam.
Okay. Okay.
So I'm listening
Yes, sir.
on it. I heard him say that, and then he has exegesis around it. Then you're saying this. I said, you are bearing witness to what he said. Because sometimes I don't believe everything that he says, but I believe enough. But you're bearing witness to what he said.
By Allah's grace.
But Brother Lukman,
Yes.
didn't Aisha say that Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, was the Holy Quran walking?
I do remember hearing that. So thank you for that. Yes, that's just more data to add to what we're speaking about. Yes. Because where did the Holy Quran come from?
What was that you said?
I said, where did the Holy Quran come from?
Allah.
It came from Allah, but it came through an individual, correct?
Muhammad.
Yes.
So now here's a question.
He wrote it.
Was the book already in the Prophet, peace be upon him? But then when Jibril said Ikra, because there was no book at that time, remember?
Right.
So could we say that the Prophet was, when he came into existence, that this book came with him already, but at the proper time it was to be revealed? Could we possibly say that?
Possibly, yes.
So now here's the question. What book did you come with?
Brother Lukman,
Yes.
when this Sister Denise, I'm sorry, I've been driving, so that's why I haven't said anything.
Be
But
careful.
yes, sir. I when you asked the question, so what do we become? And I was thinking about, I don't know, I bear witness by my action, Brother Saad is coming to me. with what he's saying, that we become the example of who we follow in our own person. Okay, and when it's like something about when you speak, it's not you anymore, because Allah has taken over. We believe every part of it. The part I read in Quran about, and no one knows its interpretation but Allah, with a period behind it.
That's right.
And those who are firmly rooted, you know, they believe all of it.
That's
and I was
right.
like, all of it, you know, I mean, so, because it's more to come. And so sometimes if a person can't read words, notice I said words, but they can read like our ancestors did. They can read the stars. They can read human behavior. Then you can write things from that. That becomes a book inside of you as well. Your experiences become a book inside of you. Your cognitions, as you always tell us to have our cognitions, all of that becomes a book inside of us. I hope I'm understanding. I've been listening what you're saying about this. Can we be a book? Yes. And solve problems? Yes. Our problems and, you know, other people's problems, and audit them, you know, and get ourselves audited so we can be ourselves for once in a lifetime. Because I don't know who we've been, you know, I don't know who I've been. As Sister Ava said, you teach what you need to learn.
That's right.
And I'm learning that it's okay when you are striving, as the minister say, to be upright, to have Allah in you manifest. So, because some people, you know, I ain't the Lord. You know you're not the, but you know you hanging with him. You know, you and Allah. You know, say Allah is one. Say Allah is first, and when we keep him number one in our lives at the beginning, and there's no God like you. You know the prayer that we pray, and I'm sort of seeing the prayer, how we walk into it, and there is no God but thee. And so, you know, that helps us not be polytheists when we say these things. So that's what I think about that book that you're talking about, not just the book of Eli, the book of Farrakhan, the book of, you know, we have so many books inside of us. You know, if we settle down and get quiet, maybe we can start writing them too.
Yes, ma'am.
That's what I was thinking.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, beloved.
No, thank you. As you're speaking, there's an ayat that came to mind. It's Surah 23, ayat number 14. And I believe this is one of the ayats that's given to us in our study guides, study guide number 2, if I'm not mistaken. But in the last sentence of the ayat, it says, so blessed be Allah, the best of creators, plural. Now, does that verse imply that there's other creators, but that Allah is the best of them? And then who are these other creators? Just something to think about, you know?
Yes, sir.
So here you have creators with a small c, but it says Allah is the best of creators. So could that imply, if we are Allah, does that imply that we have the ability also to create?
Oh, yes, sir.
Okay, but we know that Allah is the best of the creators. So now, there was something I saw in the tech. Sister Ange, I see your hand. Just give me 1 second. A question was asked, or was it the ethics? It talks about the viewpoint of beingness. And the statement is that you have to take the viewpoint of that which it is that you're striving to be. Okay, that is the equivalent in our teachings where it says we take on the coloring of Allah. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
Okay, to take on the coloring of Allah. And if I'm not mistaken, the word color in Arabic is sibga, and it means the characteristics, the nature, or the personality. So when in Dianetics it says you have to take on the viewpoint of beingness, and Allah teaches us in Holy Qur'an that you have to take on the coloring of Allah, then that means that whatever it is that we're striving to manifest ourselves as, we have to take on the viewpoint or the nature or character of that which we are trying to be, correct?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Therefore, if we are striving to be God, then we have to study God and take on the viewpoint of God in order for us to be God, yes?
Yes.
It doesn't say take on the speech of beingness. We can't talk. We got to take on the character. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, sir. Absolutely.
Go ahead, Sister Angela.
Yes, sir. I think I'll start from, you just took my mind somewhere else. You called the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan the prime derivative earlier. Am I correct?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. And when he had his more than a vision experience, that's one thing, one of the subjects Brother Jabril really delved into publicly and probably a lot more privately. But he always would put more than a vision experience, this is what he would say. And I find it very interesting, the timing of the experience and what came out of him after. Because the scroll that went down and went inside of him, I always looked at the minister as a book. Always. And I believe, this is what I believe, when the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad escaped the death plot, as it states in Revelations, and the Lamb appeared slain from the foundation, and he went and he took the book out of the right hand of the one that sat on the throne. Now, who's to say that the book that he took from Master Fard Muhammad, and by the way, one of the definitions of Fard is the covering of the face or the forehead, as you were just doing your analogy. That definition came to mind. I had to clear it some time ago, and I never forgot that one. Like the seal of the Lamb in our forehead, Fard. So I believe that the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad, the Lamb of God at that time, because we have to understand too, the characters in these books, we have to locate ourselves, and we don't stay that character. I could count many characters that I've seen the minister live, and he's still evolving or traveling or moving. So I believe that the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad, the book that he took out the hand, the right hand, I believe that was the information in that scroll that was ingested by the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. I believe we've been getting most of that book from that time until now. However, if I had to put the majority in one place, I would say it's in Closing the Gap. And I say all of that because he is the prime derivative that is showing us how to make this transitional form from man into God, because that's our prime directive, oneness with Allah. So I just wanted to say that.
Two quick points on that. If I'm not mistaken, isn't Closing the Gap a collection of interviews that were done over a period of 23 years?
Absolutely. Yes,
how many years did it take to manifest the Holy Quran?
23 years.
23 years, right? So the word Qura in Quran means that which is collected or gathered together.
Oh,
So when you look at the Holy Qur'an, that's 23 years of revelation that was given to the prophet, peace be upon him, collected into one book, correct?
Yes, sir.
Closing the Gap is a collection of interviews between the angel Jabril and the minister over 23 years, yes?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so there's some numbers that support that statement, Sister Angela. It's like, you know, you have a Holy Qur'an, but then each one of us has our own Qur'an. And I'm not saying Holy Qur'an, but we all have a collection of what we have collected over our years, yes?
Oh,
Yes, sir.
absolutely. Yes, sir.
Now let me just add one quick point. And this is just my opinion, but this is based on, because you're speaking from Revelation chapter 5. Let's look at this for a quick second. Now, this is just my perception. When you look at Revelation 5, it said that there was a man on the throne who sat in the midst of the 24 elders, the 24 elders and the 4 beasts, yes?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Who would that man be who sat on the throne in the midst of the 24?
Master Father Muhammad.
Okay, so now
At one time, and
okay,
then
yeah,
I'm sorry.
but just look at this. Look at this. The Master Prophet Muhammad. Now in Revelation 5, it talks about a lion and a lamb. There's two people there. Who took the book from the one on the throne? Who was it that opened the seals of the book?
Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad.
Okay, so that means that he would have to be the lion. Now, the lion and the lamb are two different people. Why would you say that?
Right.
Because John the Revelator wept because there was no one in the heaven above, on the earth, or under the earth that could take the book and loose the seals. But the angel said, he said, weep not.
The lion from the tribe of Judah.
The lion
Yes,
from the
Lord.
tribe of Judah has already opened the book and loosed the seals. He did not say loose the seals and open the book. This would imply that the seals are not on the book, but the seals are in the book. Meaning, many people can open the Bible, but the wisdom of the Bible was sealed up.
Right.
But the Most High Elijah Muhammad was able to open the book and loose the seals, correct?
Right.
But now what if that book was the minister? Because he said he cracked Farrakhan, right?
Right.
Now, John the Revelator did not know that the book had been opened and the seals had been loosened, correct? Y'all with me?
Yes,
I'm
sir.
with you.
So he did not have it. He had no knowledge of the lion, yes?
Yes, sir.
But he saw the lamb that looked as if it was slain from the foundation of the earth take a book. But he did not say that that lamb opened the book. He just saw the lamb get the book, correct?
Right.
Would that not imply that the lion and the lamb are two different people with two different books?
I agree.
Okay, because now watch this. The Lion of the tribe of Judah. Okay. And then it says the root of David. Now, when you deal with a tree and a root, the root is what feeds the tree, yes?
Yes, sir.
The root is what gives nourishment to the tree. So if the lion is the root of David, and we know David is a demo kit for the language, a symbolic representation of the minister, could we say that the lion being the root of David would be the same as the one that was feeding the lamb?
Absolutely. Say he allies one.
Okay, so the way I always look at that Revelation 5 is describing three individuals: Master Prophet Muhammad, the one on the throne. The Most High Elijah Muhammad is the lion that's feeding the lamb, and the lamb represents the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan that received the book but has not opened it yet. Why? Because we're taught he's going to receive that new teaching and then bring it back, correct?
Right.
Okay, so that's just how I perceive Revelation chapter 5. Let's keep it moving. Thank you for that.
Praise be to God.
Walaikum salam. Who's that?
This is Brother Michael Muhammad, sir.
Oh, Brother Michael, I didn't recognize your voice, brother. I'm always, you sound different on the Zoom meetings, brother.
Okay. Well, you can't see my face. I'm driving.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So obviously, but if I may chime in, I don't know. I don't see who's on here and what's been said. But the sister, I don't know your name, who spoke before me. She made a great, excellent point that I have been making amongst my social circle for some years. I too believe, sister, that the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan has been giving us the book because when he did have his more than a vision experience, or let me make it clear, when he was taken up on the wheel, Allah don't.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, Allah don't. We put it like this. I was telling my wife this not too long ago. Scientists don't do anything unless there's a purpose. So when they took the minister, there was an earthquake that woke him up, right? Shook the whole world, had everyone around him distracted. So that way, when he's getting scooped up, there's no way for them to know that he's getting picked up because they worry about that earthquake in the aftermath, right? Just like when Master Fard Muhammad, and I'm making a point, so follow me. Just like when Master Fard Muhammad revealed for the middle of the Depression, the Great Depression. So the government of the United States and others were distracted. See, that's science, right? And when the minister got his scrolls, okay, if you would, imparted in his head, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad made it clear. He's like, I didn't call you up here for that. The minister asked him a question. He said, I didn't call you up here for that. He said, I came here to give you something else. What he gave him is exactly what the sister just said, I believe. That's my opinion. You don't put a scroll in front of someone without actually putting it inside of them. And since then, I believe wholeheartedly, we've been getting pieces of this book, if you would, in these divine lectures. You can't listen to the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan since then and not know that this man is giving us divine revelation. He's not making it up. He's not sitting there, saying, what can I say to sound cool? He's actually been giving us divine revelation. And as the sister just said, I believe wholeheartedly that that's what was imparted. I'll even go further and I'll say this and then leave it alone. I truly believe the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan and those of us that are with him are in the new book. We're actually writing it as we speak, part of it. Now, of course, there is some more revelation yet to come, but that's the New Testament, if you would, if that makes sense.
Yes, sir.
We're in the closing part of the Old Testament, if you would, of this new dispensation. And when the Jesus returns, the Honorable Ms. Louis Farrakhan more specifically, we're going to be in the beginning of what's called that New Testament, that hereafter testament. I told my wife, I said, I believe we are the believers now. Look, hell, if you've seen what we've endured since 1977 as a body of believers, we are book worthy in Scripture. All the attacks, the poisonings, the lies, the deception. There's been no other group of people in human history that has endured what the black man and woman and those and the original people have endured in North America in any other place other than what you see today. We fit the description. So surely I believe Moses went to the mountaintop, got his book. I'm surely believe that this lamb that we are that is still currently with us has been giving us the book. So thank you, sister, for that observation.
Praise be to Allah. Brother, she visits us from the mothership every now and then, brother. So
Praise be to Allah. You are so very welcome, and thank you for your comment. Can I just share something real quick? And I'm sorry, but
go ahead, sister.
As he's saying, we are books, and he just brought up something. I've been looking at this next overwhelming event, and the words stuck out to me because they're trying to see how they're going to deal with Donald Trump, because he will not be tried before he becomes president. And when he becomes president, he will not be tried. So the lion in this hunt is the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. And I was looking at the charges that can be called treason that would, put the person that's being charged in front of a military tribunal and could call for what they would say the death penalty. For those that know, we know what's going to happen.
Mhm.
So sedition. Sedition is conduct or speech inciting people to rebel against the authority of a state or a monarch. So we know these teachings are life-like giving. We know that this is a world that's coming to the end now. So as the brother was speaking about us, to me it bore witness to us being taught how the Bible hasn't been rearranged, where we think Revelation is the end of the New Testament. It could be the end of the Old Testament, but that future is it. We are taught that only 30% is past, and the other percent is prophecy. So we very well could be walking through this, because that's the only thing. The minister's life is so well balanced, and the only thing they could charge him with is going against the authority of this world, which is Satan's world. So of course he's gonna go against it. Just wanted to drop that.
Crazy.
Yes, ma'am. Sister Angela, it's 25% is prophecy and 75%. 25% is history and 75% is prophecy.
Praise be to Allah. Thank you so much.
Yes, ma'am.
Sister Denise, I think that's your hand that's up.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. I was thinking about when he gave us that gift, study guide number 19. And we were so excited. It's like, oh, wow, people trying to figure out, what is he giving us? And he gave us, who is God? It's like sometimes it's like we already have it. And then it's put in a book.
Mm-hmm.
And because since we're talking about the book, and then, once the book had been given to us, because I bear witness about words, once you see the actual words, then when you hear it, when you actually, your eyes is set on the words of what he says. I don't know, it just came to be not a different meaning, but you have, you can parse the words,
Mm-hmm.
because my auditory is real good. But when I see it, when my eyes see it, and it's almost like whatever we need to have, sometimes he has already given it to us. It's just, if we look at him as a lovely song, I know what he's about to say, or I know where he's going with this, and we may not know where
Mm-hmm.
he's headed.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's what I was thinking about, how excited we were with that gift that he gifted us with, study guide number 19, and that dealt with who is God. And so I'm thinking, and then he did the criterion in a book, and he just he does things, because I don't know, but to me he's crisscrossed a lot of stuff
Mm-hmm.
that he has already said. And so sometimes if we just value things that he has given to us, I'm talking to myself too,
Mm-hmm.
Just take it and value the things that he has already given us. And then sometimes we'll see, oh man, how did I miss this? I mean, wow, I didn't see that the last time. And sometimes we haven't. So that's what I was thinking about, when we think we're waiting and we've already been given.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So that's all I had to say. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. That's a good observation. Good observation. Let's see where we leave off at. Okay, if the Holy Qur'an was manifested as a human being, or if a human being was a living representation of the wisdom of the Holy Qur'an, what type of person would that be? Then it says, so now, would that person have a knowledge of every ayat or verse in the Holy Qur'an? I think that would be yes, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So now, if some of its ayats are allegorical and some are decisive, would he have to have a knowledge of every allegory, and would he have to have a knowledge or understanding of every ayat that is decisive?
Yes.
The affirmative. Okay. So if he had an understanding of every allegorical ayat and every decisive ayat, then he would have to know how to use every ayat in combination with the other ayats, because you use the decisive to substantiate the allegorical, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so he would have to have a knowledge of every ayat and then how to use them with relationship to one another. So he would know all the ayats, know how to use them with respect to other ayats to extract deeper meanings, and this would give a deeper understanding of Allah, self, the universe, and the truths upon which all of these are built. Does that make sense? Because this is a book, we're told, that teaches an explanation of all things, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So, and after he gained the knowledge of all the allegories and decisive ayats, he would be able to manifest the truths in his ways and actions and teach these truths to others, that they may become a physical manifestation of those truths. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay. So the goal here is to expand the diameter of our thinking to increase the circumference of our activity. We're going to touch on 3 quick concepts of a specific type of mathematics, but we're going to use it to gain knowledge about ourselves. And the numbers, the first time I did this, it was based on an idea that just popped in my head. So when I sat down and did the math, the numbers that popped up just reinforced the fact that Allah speaks the language of numbers. So today we're going to use a basic concept, what's called sets. It's a mathematical concept, and we're going to use this to get a better understanding of our Islam. Okay, so we're going to look at a mathematical theology. So can we use set theory to gain the knowledge of Allah, God, self, and the universe? Most definitely. So can we call this a set theology or a theology of set theory? You know, taken from problem number 13. So we're going to ask the question, what is a set? We're going to look at a concept called cardinality, and that'll probably take about 10 seconds to teach you because it's not complicated. And then what is a power set? And then how can we gain a knowledge of self from this study? And what do we find when we apply these mathematical concepts to the Holy Qur'an? So there's something real interesting that's gonna be a result of this. Sister Anya, are you on the line? Are you in the meeting? Sister Anya? I think I saw her just. Okay. So now, I'm hearing an echo. Can anyone go on mute? Are you there, Sister Anya? Okay. I hear an echo.
Yes, sir. I'm here.
Okay, I saw your question, and just remind me at the end. I'll address that question about the prime derivative. I did see that.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
So now, problem number 13. If we use that as an equation, set theory is mathematics, so we know we can use the law of substitution, correct? Yes. I can't see anyone, so I'm going based on what I hear.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. So then we say, after learning set theory, which is Islam, and Islam is set theory, true. You can always prove it no limited time. And then what? Now you must speak the language so you can use your set theory theology in the proper term. So problem number 13 is an equation. So it's easy
Yes,
to
sir.
say after learning mathematics, which is Islam,
what
but
you told me.
mathematics has so many different aspects to it that really, if we talk about algebra, and algebra is mathematics, then by the law of substitution, we can say after learning algebra, which is Islam, and Islam is algebra, correct?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
So no matter what level of mathematics and no matter what level of physics, chemistry, biology, no matter what we study, Brother Michael, there's an herbological theology, I guess you could say. No matter what we study as a science, there's Islam in it. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Now, how can we use this to learn about Islam? Here's the word sets. Now, Brother Lukman, why do you have a chessboard on the screen? Because when I thought of the word sets, I thought of a chess set. So what are sets? So when you're playing a game of chess, you have one person on one side, they have a set of pieces, and the other person has a set of pieces, correct?
Yes, sir.
And that's what a set is. A set is only a collection of things. That's all it is. It's a collection of things. Okay. So set theory is mathematics that's applied to a collection of elements. Okay. It's mathematics that's applied to groups of things. So we could have a collection of elements, a collection of people, a collection of concepts, or a collection of ideas. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So to identify a set of concepts or ideas would allow us to sit ourselves in heaven at once. If we were to go in ourselves and find all the ideas, all the jewels, all the concepts, all the things that God has already planted in our own mind, if we were to identify that and work to bring out those concepts, we could sit ourselves in heaven. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
Okay. I look at, this is just me speaking for myself, in the Holy Qur'an where it says gardens in which rivers flow.
Mm-hmm.
I look at the garden as our mind, and the rivers that are flowing represent ideas. And when we submit to God and he places in gardens with which rivers flow, he allows us to be blessed with ideas. And if we work the idea, then we can produce the luxury, money, good homes, and friendships in all walks of life. Does that make sense?
Oh, yes,
I
sir.
bear witness.
So we're all of us are already millionaires. We just got to work to manifest what we have. And each one has something that has not been seen before. And we're the only ones that Allah gave it to bring for us to manifest it.
Did we lose them?
Some ideas are meant to be kept secret until they're
Maybe
manifested,
it's my
because you have some people that like to lie and thieve and steal ideas. Now, I say that because I remember, Sister Angela, about 2 years ago, you had mentioned something in one of the meetings where that happened to you.
I didn't. You broke out the last bit of what you said. Can you repeat it?
I said that because I remember about a year and a half or 2 years ago, you had mentioned you had an idea and you spoke about it, and someone took it and ran with it and took it.
Right.
I remember
Yes.
that. Okay, now what are sets? A set is simply a collection of objects. That's all it is. It's nothing complicated. It's a group of things. Each object in a set is called a member or an element. Okay. Now, if you look at each dynamic is really a set of elements. So when you look at the first dynamic, it's a set with only one element in it, which is the individual, correct?
Right.
Okay. If you look at the second dynamic can have more than one element. So if an individual is married, if they have children, then that's like a set, and the elements represent the family, yes?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, sir.
Okay. If you look at the third dynamic, if we look at the third dynamic as a group, okay, if you look at the group of individuals that are on the Zoom meeting, this is a set on the third dynamic, okay? So in a set, a group, or a container, a set can either have elements or it has no elements. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
So we're learning set theory on a gradient level. We're set processing, I guess you can call it. So when a set
We're
is
set tripping.
say what?
I said we're set tripping.
So when a set is empty, it's called a null, empty, or a void set. So it's just a set that has nothing in it. Okay. Cardinality. Okay, so we're gonna go a little bit deeper into sets. We're gonna look at something called cardinality. You'll understand this in 10 seconds. It's not complicated. You have what's called cardinal numbers, and you have a concept called cardinality. And all that it means is a number that is used in simple counting, and that indicates how many elements there are in an assemblage. Now, for example, if we look at this Zoom meeting, this is a set, correct?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
How many people are in the Zoom meeting right now? Look at your participants.
7, 8, 9. I'm sorry.
At 9, right? So this set has a cardinality of 9. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
When I first come on a Zoom meeting and I'm the only one that's in the room, what is the cardinality of the Zoom meeting?
1.
1. If I come on a Zoom meeting and I'm out of the room, what is the cardinality of the Zoom meeting?
0.
0. Okay, so you understand. So you see a set and you see cardinality, correct? Cardinality is just how many elements are in the set. Okay, if you look at Lost Found Muslim lesson number 1, what is the cardinality if you look at that as a set with regards to the questions?
Lost Found Muslim lesson number 1.
Mm-hmm. How many
The
questions?
original man.
No, what are the questions?
I'm sorry.
How many questions?
1 or
It
14?
is 14.
14. Okay, 14 is your cardinality. So is there anyone that doesn't understand cardinality? If we all understand it, we can go forward. So everyone has that concept? Okay.
So cardinality is what exists in the set.
It's just the number of elements in a set.
Okay.
Right. So it's the quantity.
It's the quantity. If you look at your hand as a set and each of the digits on your hand, what is the cardinality of your hand?
5.
5.
Okay, you have 5, you have 4 fingers, 1 thumb. So if you look at the totality, the cardinality is 5. So cardinality is just a fancy mathematical term that describes the number of elements in a set. Okay. So if I look at the mathematical language in problem number 13 as a set of numbers, what is the cardinality of that set?
The math, you said in Supreme Wisdom? Or
if you
numbers?
look in problem number 13, and we look at the mathematical language, if you look at how many numbers in the mathematical language, look at that as a set. How many numbers are in that set?
Well, isn't it? Let me see. They got it from 0 to 9. Right?
0 to 9. So how many are there? How many numbers?
10.
10.
10 numbers.
Okay. So if you look at the mathematical language as a set, then that set has a cardinality of 10. What we're doing in doing this, let me pose this question. I want everyone just to be honest. It's family. Does anyone feel as though these concepts are putting a strain on the thinking? Yes, no?
Brother Lamar raised his hand.
Okay.
He's ear hustling right now.
Okay, and that's fine. Because what this is the mathematical removal of rust on the thinking. Some of this is going to be difficult because some of this is new. We're beginning to think on a mathematical level now. To me, this is like the turning of the keys. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
Okay, we're just removing the rust from the locks. But as we go through it, and the more you practice and go through it, you're going to realize that all of this is going to become familiar to us is because all of this, and I'm going to speak from the perspective of how I think Mother Tainetta would say it. Peace, may Allah be pleased with her. All of this is already within us.
Yes, sir.
Okay, all of this is already in us. The minister said we are mathematics, correct?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
So this concept is already there. But remember this. The enemy could not rule unless the original man was put to sleep, correct?
That's right.
Okay. So they had to take away our understanding of mathematics in order for them to rule on the level that they're ruling. But now their rule is over. So what happens? We're being restored back to our understanding of mathematics. We are slowly coming. We were asleep mathematically, and we're slowly being awakened. Yes.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So as we're going over some of these concepts, this is like rubbing your eyes when you first wake up and get that little crust out the eye. That's what we're doing right now. Math, we're getting that crust out of our mind. We're removing the rust from our thinking. Okay. So just be patient with yourself. Another time, you and I will be flying through this. Okay. So now, if you look at the Holy Qur'an, if you look at it as a set of surahs, what is the cardinality of the Holy Qur'an?
114.
114. Does everyone see that?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Holy Qur'an, if you look at the surahs, the cardinality is 114. So the Holy Qur'an, you can look at it as a set of surahs. Okay, so the cardinality of the Holy Qur'an with regards to surahs would be 114. Now, what would be the cardinality with regards to the ayats or the verses? Now, here's where it gets interesting. Here's where it gets interesting. And again, this is the main thought that popped in my head probably about a year ago. It was just one of those moments where I was sitting still doing nothing. And there's a saying in Buddhism. I'm gonna paraphrase it. I want everyone mock up in your mind, you're sitting over a pond of water, and take your hand and move the water around so the water is very turbulent. Can y'all see that in your mind?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
If you were to look into that turbulent water, could you see your face clearly?
No, sir.
What must you do in order to see your face clearly with regards to the water?
Let the water down.
You gotta let the water settle down. And once the water settles down, can you see reflection?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. This is why we have to put our phones down sometimes and get away from the TV, because all these things are designed to keep our reflection.
That's right.
The word is interbulated. So you're interbulating the water, and that's a term that's used in science of survival. So when the water is interbulated, you're looking at the interbulated theta. So we have to sit and get quiet and let our minds, be still. And when our mind is still, and this is something that Mother Tainetta Muhammad would teach on, if you sit in silence, this is how you begin to hear the higher frequencies of wisdom now. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So when you look at the cardinality of the Holy Qur'an, there are some scholars that the majority of the scholars say that there's 6,236 ayats in the Holy Qur'an if you exclude the bismillahs that come at the beginning of every surah. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
So remember that number, 6,236. If you include the bismillah, it becomes 6,348. Does everyone follow?
Yes, sir.
Okay, now, so the cardinality of the Holy Qur'an, we could say is 6,236, or if we include the bismillahs, the cardinality of the Holy Qur'an would be 6,348. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay. It's just the number. Now, here's what's called a power set. Here's where it gets interesting. Let me see. I see someone's in the chat real quick. Okay. Sister Belinda gives a takbir. What was that takbir for, Sister Belinda?
It was a while back.
You know what it was?
Yes, sir.
What was it?
It was on the book.
Okay.
Yes, sir. It was a while back.
All right, praise be to Allah. So what is a power set? I want everyone to, this is, put your, as the minister say, put your thinking caps on. Now, what is a power set? A power set represents all of the possible combinations of the elements that are in the set. Now, what does that mean? Okay. If you had a bowl of fruit, okay, and in that bowl, there's only a banana and an apple, how many choices would you have?
Two.
Two.
Okay, you're thinking two, but you got to think outside the box.
Oh, 0. I mean, 3. You got 3 because you
3.
don't have to eat anything.
Okay, you don't have to eat anything. So those who say,
Or 4. You could eat both. 4.
there you go. Thank you, Sister Tina, the Pimp Dad scientist. So there's 4 options here. You can choose no fruit. You can choose the banana only. You can choose the apple only, or you can choose both. Y'all see that?
Yes, sir.
Okay, now there's a direct mathematical calculation you can make to determine how many choices you can make based on how many elements are in the set. Does everyone follow that?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Does everyone remember how to do exponents? If I say 2 to the second power, that would equal what?
4.
4. If I say 2 to the third power, what would that be?
8.
6.
That's 2 times 2 times 2.
Isn't that 8?
That's 8. Okay. So we're dealing with what's called exponents. 2 times 2 times 2. So the formula, there's a formula. This is the formula. Now I know this looks complicated. Okay. It does look complicated, but remember, this is the language of a scientist. So if we are to get into the circle of the gods, we have to understand the language, correct?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
So all this is saying is, we all understand what cardinality is, right? The number of elements in a set, yes?
Yes, sir.
All the power set is you take the number 2 and you raise it to the power is the number of elements that are in that set. I'll give an example. The bowl has 2 pieces of fruit, right?
Yes.
So it had a cardinality of what?
2.
2. So 2 to the second power equals what?
4.
And that gave you your 4 options.
Alhamdulillah.
Okay, that's your 4 options. Okay. So this little quick little thing, just by doing that little calculation, lets you know the number of elements or the number of possible combinations that exist in that set. Sister Angela.
Interesting. Yes, sir. I had some years back ran into the 26 letters as a, figuring out the problem. I ran into it by way of a personality test, and I found out that they valued each personality trait as a letter. And I did exactly what you did, probably not the same way, but got the same result. Because for everything that exists, there's a duality of it. So that always have that factor of 2. Everything comes in 2s. So the 26 turned into, 52 personality. Well, it's 13 personality traits, surprisingly. So it's not 52. It went right back to 26 on the positive and negative side.
Yes, ma'am. And it's funny you said, I was studying something with regards to striking the rock and out came forth 12 springs, and every tribe knew their drinking place. And there's a whole lot in that if you look at it from the level of Arabic, of the springs and the 12 and the tribes, and and the Holy Qur'an says, march onto the rock with thy staff. There's a whole lot of Dianetics in there, and inshallah we'll go through that at another time. But the Arabic, just based on the allegory of the striking the rock and whatnot, when the Arabic will take us into aspects of the text, into a type of processing. But that will be there for another time. But I remember, I think, did not Sister Ava teach on the 12 personalities at one time?
I believe so. Yes, sir. I think it's in one of the study guides.
Okay, I think I remember her teaching on that. Okay. So let's go back to this. So when you know the cardinality or the number of elements, then you just take that number 2, raise it to that power. So you can choose to do nothing. You can choose the apple, the banana, or you can choose both. Now, here's a question. How can you use this concept to solve your problems? How can I use this to solve my problems? So if we take a problem, a decision that we have to make, then if we can understand the cardinality of that problem, meaning how many options do I have, would this not allow us to now we can make the best decision based on the data that we have?
Yes, sir.
But oftentimes we choose nothing, correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
Sir.
In the language of the text, that's no confront, right?
Yes, sir.
Correct.
Okay. So I was looking at this like, okay, in all my decisions, if I just list all the things, and this is trying to think where he says this in the text. This is in the ethics book. This comes under the condition of confusion. Is anyone studying the ethics? It's called the condition of confusion. The main thing you got to do is when you're in a confused state, in confusion, you have to first figure out where you are. And then I think in problems and work, they describe it like this. You just have to choose one thing, find one stable datum, and then figure that out first. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Yes, sir.
Some of us have a stack of bills and we just look at it and we just get frustrated and leave the room instead of, let me just open one envelope at a time, look at this, either pay this now or put it over here as to what I got to pay later. And then eventually we'll get through every piece of mail. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
This is Angela.
Oh, I didn't put it down.
Okay,
Sorry.
no problem. No problem. Okay. Okay, so now let's look. We have a bowl with an apple, an orange, and a pear. Now so what's the cardinality of this set now?
3.
1, 3.
3. So how many choices do we have? So what's
36.
What's 2 to the 3rd power?
That's 9.
Do it again. 2 to the 3rd power. Not
3 times
3, not 3, not 3 squared. 2
Oh,
to the 3rd power.
2 to the 3rd.
2 times 2 times 2.
8.
Okay.
8. Okay. So again, understand this, family. We may not get all this at one time, but this is just to start the process of removing that rust on our mathematical mind to get us back into the process or the desire to learn about math and science. Does that make sense?
Brother Lukman, you
Yes,
said you have 3 pieces of fruit present. 3, and you said how many choices do you have?
Right.
So would we not square the 3?
No. What you do is you take the number 2 is always the base. The number 2 is the base, always.
Okay.
The cardinality, the number of elements is going to be your exponent.
Oh, okay.
That's going to be your exponent. So 2 is always the base.
Okay.
Brother Lukman,
Yes, ma'am.
okay, maybe a stupid question, but
No such thing, sister.
why is 2 always the base? Where is that coming from?
That's just one of those principles of the universe, sister. But now let's look at it from this perspective. When you look at 2, 2 represents who?
The God and myself.
But two represents, when you look at the mathematics as we're taught in the Nation of Islam, one represents who?
Master Muhammad.
Okay. Two represents who?
Elijah.
Two represents woman.
Oh.
Okay.
Okay. Two represents woman. But now here's another way to look at it. If you were to deal with prime numbers, did you know that 2 is the only prime number that's even?
Okay.
So now if you look at it from the perspective of the teachings, 1 represents Allah, correct?
Yes.
Yes.
2 represents the Most High Elijah Muhammad, right?
Yes.
Okay.
1 plus 2 equals what?
3.
And 3 represents the first odd prime number. And there's a hadith that says that Allah loves the prime number, the odd numbers, right?
Okay.
Do you know in number theory, the number 3 is the only number that exists that is the sum total of all the numbers that come before it?
Mm-hmm.
So 3 would represent who?
The minister.
Ma'am. So on one level, you can say 2 represents woman, and we could get into a whole nother conversation about, well, what does that have to do with this set theory? It would tell us that the woman is the foundation. Okay, we could teach this from the perspective of different aspects of the woman. I remember the minister saying this before. He said this with regards to men. He says that you're not a man unless there's a woman that says you're a man. Have you ever heard that before?
No.
You never heard that before?
I never heard that. Not put like that, no.
I've heard that. I remember the minister saying it. I think he was talking about with regards to, maybe it was with regards to marriage, but he was saying it from the perspective of you're not a man until a woman says you're a man.
Wow.
Okay. And now I got to find the actual fact of where I remember him saying it, but I can't remember the lecture. So when we say a nation can rise no higher than its woman, that means the woman is the base or the foundation. Could we say that?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So does that kind of answer the question, Sister Ania?
Well, it gives an explanation of the 1 and 2 and the 3, but it.
You want to know why it pertains to set theory?
Right.
I'll go deeper into it. There's something about that number 2 with regards to sets. It's just like pi is with a circle. There's a reason why 3.14 represents the ratio between the diameter and the circumference. It's just a law of the universe. Mm-hmm. But I will dig deeper. I'll have to go a little deeper into the number theory to find out. You want to know why that works?
Well, I just wanted to know why is it a formula that is like a constant formula that is used in set theory that
yes.
Where
yes,
you always put the 2?
Yes.
Okay. Well, what is that?
It's called the power set rule.
Okay.
Okay. The power set equals 2 to the power of your cardinality. It's a rule of the universe.
Okay.
Okay. That whenever you're dealing with power sets, you're always going to have 2 as your base.
Yes, sir. Okay.
Okay. The woman is always the foundation.
Is that the same as an axiom?
You could say, yeah, you could axiom, equations, rules, that it's usually different words, but really you can say that's an axiom. Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Axiom, theorem, proposition, there's different, these are, but it's just like PEMDAS. They're rules and they just are. It's just the way things are.
Natural law.
It's just natural law. It's just we can't change the nature of the universe. It's just the way things. It is what it is. But I'm gonna go a little deeper.
Yeah, that's a good question that sister asked, because it makes me wonder, because everything comes in pairs.
Mm-hmm.
Everything in the Holy Qur'an, it speaks about pairs.
Mm-hmm.
and yeah.
So there's more into it. Again, see, there's no such thing as a stupid question. what we might see as we'll use the term stupid question, but really we're asking a question that's outside the normal circumference of our thinking, which is that's where the gold is. Those are the because look at that one question, how it just expanded the diameter of our thinking.
Mm-hmm.
And now we don't have an answer, but guess what? Now there's pressure on our mind. For some of us, I know me, I'm going to study because now I want to know why. I know the formula, but I want to know why. Why does that number work like that? Why is it that it produces that information? So, Sister Anya, thank you for that question. Sister Belinda.
Yes, when she asked the question, it made me think of what Sister Angela said earlier about everything has its opposite. So the whole two thing in the like we're saying, the two thing in the universe, you've got a thing and the opposite of that thing. So you got two.
Yes, ma'am. And remember, the minister taught once before, we got to know the numbers, but the numbers mean something. They're not just arbitrary. There's more science in each number.
Wow. And it's making me think that the two, as long as I'm here, the two is also here, because I think about the two as Allah and the individual. You know, Allah and the individual, Allah and me. You know, we're two, but we're one.
Okay, let's look at that real quick. When the two is present, what number is automatically present as well?
1.
But 1 is what? It's hidden.
Right.
Okay, so the 1 is hidden, but it's always present, yes?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so when you see a number, that number, by being present, is a bearer of witness that there's another number that's present and hidden, but that is the number that's responsible for that number being there, yes?
That's right.
So all of us that are in this Zoom meeting, the fact that we're here is a bearer of witness of what? There's one backing us, the one is present, but the one is hidden. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
So now look at that bowl of fruit. What is the cardinality? The cardinality of the bowl of fruit is what?
3.
Okay, so we know it's 3. Okay. So now, that's the formula. That's the rule, or that's the axiom. And remember, everything in that represents a number. Okay. So all we're doing is we're translating symbols into numbers. So that becomes 2 to the 3rd power. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
Okay, now I'm building up to something. There's a reason why we're doing this. When you see the end of the road, at least to me, when I saw this, it blew my mind. Okay. So that means we have 8 options. We have 8 choices. So I can say, I'm not going to pick any fruit. I can choose the apple only. I can choose an orange only. I can choose a pear only. Or I might say, you know what? Let me have an apple and an orange. Or I just might want an apple and a pear. Or maybe I just want an orange and a pear. Or maybe I'm just hungry. I'm going to take all 3. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Those are all of the options, possible options. Okay, now, summary. A set is a collection of elements, objects, concepts, thoughts, or ideas. Okay, so a set can be anything. The cardinality of a set represents the number of elements that are in that set. Does everyone follow that?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And the power set represents all the possible combinations. Okay. So now, is our mind a collection of concepts, thoughts, or ideas?
Yes.
Okay. What is the cardinality of your mind?
Infinite.
It's infinite. The minister already told us the mind of man is infinite. So what would be your power set? What are all the possible combinations?
It was infinity, 2 to the infinity power.
2 to the infinity. Yes, go ahead, Sister Tina. 2 to the infinity. So that means and I'm gonna pick on Sister Ani for just a minute, but it's not picking on her. The fact that she had that idea, that question was tapping into the cardinality and the power set of her own mind, which is infinite.
Right.
But you got to understand, this educational system keeps our power set so doggone small. Our cardinality, we might not even have a cardinality because the system in this world ain't worth a damn. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
But when we come into the teachings and we begin to ask questions that we normally don't ask, what does that do? That increases the cardinality. And as you increase the cardinality, what happens to the power? What happens? If we increase the cardinality, what happens to the power? If we increase the cardinality on an increment level, we increase the power of our mind on an exponential level. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So the more we learn, the more we know, the more questions we ask about what we do not yet know. And then what does that do? That increases the cardinality, which increases the power. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
Does that everyone follow that?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So the minister said, you can take all that we learned and put it on the head of a pin and still have room to run around on it. Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So that just means that the more we, how did Erykah Badu say it? The man who says he knows nothing, the man that says he knows. How's it go? Oh, what was that? The man who says he knows something. The man who says he knows something knows that he knows nothing at all. Remember that? It's gonna be warmer than your summertime and hotter in your fall. Y'all remember that?
I remember that song. I can't remember exactly how that part goes, but I remember that song and I love it.
Yeah. But y'all know what I'm talking about. The more
Yes,
that
sir.
we learn, if we're humble, we realize, damn, I don't know nothing.
That's right.
That's why Allah says, if you take all the trees and make them into pens and all the seeds and ink and add 7 other seeds, you can never exhaust the words of Allah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And that reminds me of something our sister Denise, she says how much she loves to listen and learn from others. It's so much.
Definitely. Now here's the final part. Here's the final part. We're building up to this part. Now, to me, when I saw this by Allah's grace, because I don't take credit for nothing, because Allah is the best teacher. Does that make sense?
Yes.
But when I saw this just blew me away. This just blew me away. You might not get as excited as me, but math is my drug. This is my drug of choice. I'm a user. I'm addicted. This is just what I do. I'm what some people call a math nerd. I'll sit here for hours with my head in a math book looking for the teachings. So the Holy Qur'an as a person. The Holy Qur'an as a person. Okay. We've already said that the Holy Qur'an is a set or a collection of ayats, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So in the Holy Qur'an, it says the name of Al-Qur'an, the proper name of the sacred book of the Muslims, occurs several times in the book itself. The word Qur'an is an infinitive noun from the root Qura, meaning primarily he collected things together. Now this is the Maulana Muhammad Ali translation on page I-25, which is it's part of the introduction. Now I want you to look at the key term here. Is the word Qura means collected things together. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
A set is a collection of objects, elements, thoughts, or ideas. Yes?
Yes.
So the word Qura, the root word, and the word set have ARC. They're equivalent. Yes?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So the Holy Qur'an is a set. Now, at another time, you have what's called subsets. That's a subset are sets within a set. That's a whole nother topic for another time. But so when you look at if the Holy Qur'an is a set of ayats, and then we're going to just go back over this real quick, and then we're going to land the plane, then a person would have to have an understanding of all of its verses. We've already made that, we've already stated that, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So now, if the cardinality of the Holy Qur'an is represented by the number 6,236 and the number 6,348, now, does everyone understand where we got those two numbers? For those that might have come in late, do you understand what those two numbers are?
Yes.
Okay. 6,236 are the number of verses in the Holy Quran. 6,000, and that's the number of verses if you don't include bismillah at the beginning of every surah. 6,348 represents if you add all the bismillahs to that number. What would be the power set of these two numbers? So now we're taking 2 to the power of 6,236. So that's 2 times 2 times 2 times 2 times 2 times 2, 6,236 times. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now remember what we said in the very beginning, and now here's what that number looks like. Well, we're going to get to the number. Is there a mathematical relationship to the one that would have a complete knowledge of Al-Kitab, the Holy Quran? So we said that that represents who?
That's Allah, right?
Okay, okay. So now power set of the Holy Quran without the Bismillah. That's the formula. 2 to the power of the cardinality of that set, which is 2. Now look at that number. Now I want everyone to get a piece of paper out and a pencil, and I want you to figure out what is 2 to the power of 6,236. No, I don't. We'll be here forever. But here's what that number looks like. Power set, a complete knowledge of the Holy Quran, allegorical and decisive ayats would be, okay, this person would have to have a knowledge of all these ayats, but not only understand all the ayats, but know how to use the ayats in combination with one another to get a deeper understanding of the ayats. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Have you ever seen the minister teach on different parts of the Quran and then join these things together to produce a higher understanding of the teachings?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes, sir.
here's what the number looks like. Now look at that number and tell me what you see. What number do you see at that number?
The one is first before all of them.
Okay, so it's 1.67, 129, 440, 998, 292, 08811, 800, 750, 00835, 877 to the power of 1,877. What is the exponent to that number?
It's Master Rob Muhammad's birth year.
Oh, Brother Robin, I didn't know you were here, brother.
Yeah, I'm here, brother. I'm here. I
You
dropped
see
off for a second. But
Okay. So when you take the power set of the Holy Quran, you get that number to the power of 1877.
Wow.
Wow.
Now, is that a coincidence? Did Brother Luqman just make that number up? No, I fell through the floor when I first saw it. I'm like, that's not a coincidence. Okay, that's the number, 1877. Or maybe it's just a coincidence. I don't know. What do you think?
Oh, no, but yeah,
Ain't no coincidence.
No,
No
it
such
matches
thing.
up. It matches up to me because I see the 1 point and then all the other numbers, but the 1 is first.
The one
and
is
then
first.
the end is the power is to the power of his birth date. So that's to me Omega, Alpha and Omega.
Ooh, I just got chills on that one. Thank you.
Yeah, that was powerful there.
Yeah.
Ooh.
So now here's the question, and I can't answer this question. Do all those numbers in between there mean something? That I don't know. I do know that the 67th surah is the kingdom. I do know that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, but I beyond that, I can't tell you anything.
Oh.
Okay, now let's do the power set of the Holy Quran with the bismillah. That's the formula. So we want 2 to the power of 6,348. Here's the number. It says power set, a complete set of knowledge of the Holy Quran, allegorical and decisive. We want the whole shebang now. Get this number to the power of 1910.
What?
Mm.
Wait a minute.
Yeah, brother.
Wait a minute.
Yeah, brother. If you do it on the calculator, you'll come up with the same number. I'm not making this up.
Wow.
I'm not making this up. That's the number.
No, don't believe you are.
1910.
He is God.
Mm-hmm. So now, but now look at this. Look at this, because we dealt with this when we did the speed of thought, right? Remember we did the speed of thought?
Yes.
How long would it take to make one trip to Pluto at the speed of thought? And it takes 0.1877 of a second. Y'all remember that? We got 0.1877.
Yes.
So now the question is, the numbers, the mathematics did not change just because the Savior was born. This means this was written in our universe trillions of years prior to the Savior being born in 1877. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
So those that study numbers, they would have this knowledge. They would have this knowledge. When we study mathematics, physics, and science, there are clues, not just in the universe above, but even on the atomic level, on the level of atoms in nuclear physics, there are clues. I'll give you one quick one. Do you know when the proton was discovered? Well, no, let me say this. Well, no, I'll say it like this. If I'm not mistaken, do you know what year the proton was discovered as far as atomic structure?
No.
If I'm not mistaken, it was discovered in 1897.
That's the year that Elijah Muhammad was born.
Now, there's a particle called I believe it's called a positron. And they found this when they split light. They took light and they split it. And it produced, if I'm not mistaken, an electron and a positron. Guess when the positron was discovered?
1933.
Actually, 1932.
Okay.
That's when he was conceived.
But now, if you go back 9 months, I think it's to the month of August, September, October, November, December, January, February, March, April, May. Yes. August of 1932 is when the positron was discovered. And it's exactly 9 months from the time that the minister was.
Wow.
So the history is written in both the universe above, but our history is also written on the level of quantum physics, nuclear physics, and atomic physics below.
Praise be to Allah. Brother Lukman, can you go back to that screen right before the 1910? Can you go to the 1877 screen right fast, please?
Yes, let me get my pointer. Okay, there we go.
That's it? Okay. All right, thank you.
Brother.
Go ahead, brother.
I'm getting chills from what you're telling me because, and first, assalamu alaikum, everybody. So, And it gave me chills seeing that. And the first thing I thought about was the Bible. It says the wise men saw the star in the east and they came to see the baby Jesus.
Mm-hmm.
But see, when you saying you looking at the numbers, wise people who understand numbers, they don't know how to find. It's like they found him. How did they find him? How did they know?
Mm-hmm.
There's billions of people on the planet. And when I look at that, it's almost like to me, I mean, that's like prophetic. If I can calculate those numbers and say, all right, 1877, okay, this is when he will be born.
Mm-hmm.
It's almost like a map in a sense, or a year. It gives you a clue.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Okay, this is when he'll come to the United States. It's like through that mathematics, and I heard the minister say, the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad said, through a careful study of history and mathematics, you can predict the future.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, that's a lot of power in that. I don't exactly know what to do with that yet, but it's powerful. I'm just saying. Thank you for sharing that.
Oh, praise be to Allah. Didn't Brother Jabril calculate down to the day that the Most High was going to depart?
Yes. Sir. Yes, sir.
And now, Brother Michael, are you still on the call? He might have dropped off. Brother Michael dropped a heavy jewel on us Saturday. Were you were there, right, Sister Tina?
Was that what Saturday? No.
Brother Eric's meeting?
Oh no, I was not there. Praise
Okay.
be to
What Brother Michael dropped on us was incredible. He said that and I'm trying to paraphrase from memory what he said, but he said that there was someone that he spoke to, a brother that said, we know that the Most High Elijah Muhammad read 104 books, correct?
Yes.
Okay. He said there was a brother he spoke to that said there are clues in the messenger's books that will guide you to 75 of them if you can. They're encoded in the messenger's books. They're encoded in the messenger's books. Now I'm gonna say this too, along with that. Sister Peggy, are you still on?
No, she had to leave.
Had to leave. Okay, I'll share this just as a footnote, and we can probably go into this another time. But one day, this is back when I was in paramedic school. I was always looking at connections between the numbers and the teachings. When you break down sugar, there's a process in the body called glycolysis. Glycolysis. It's the breakdown of sugar. Okay, we consume sugar, and the body takes the sugar and breaks it down so it can use it as energy. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
What happens is based on that sugar molecule, the end result, like if we eat fruit, the end result is going to be, because if you understand photosynthesis, if we eat the fruit, one of the end results is our body is going to produce water. Does that make sense?
Okay. Yes, sir.
Okay. Now, I won't go into the whole process. That'll be a topic for another time. But there's a point I want to make. Why these numbers in our teachings are more than just numbers. Okay. That 104 is very significant in the process of metabolism. Because what happens on the cellular level, there's a molecule. It's called cytochrome C. It's a little molecule. And what it does is this is the end stage where the electrons and the particles come through in order to produce water. And the water is life, correct?
Yes, sir.
On cytochrome C, guess how many parts or elements are on cytochrome Z, which is like one of the last parts that converts the energy to water. There's 104 of them.
Mm.
Okay. And the reason why I say this is there's numbers in our supreme wisdom, but there's more to the numbers. These numbers represent other aspects of math, science, physics, chemistry, biology, the universe, astronomy. These numbers are like keys that we have to turn. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So learning our actual facts is more than just us understanding numbers. Those numbers are like keys to the universe. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And while we're on this point, let me say this last point, and then we're going to end. We'll be able to end it. If you look at, and I shared this once before by Allah's grace, if you look at an island, and you've heard the statement that no man is an island, correct?
Yes, sir.
No man is an island. What does that mean? It means no man can do anything independently, correct?
Right. Yes, sir.
But now what is an island? An island is a landmass surrounded on all sides by water, correct?
Yes.
So an island, if we were to use that as a demo kit, what type of person would that represent? It would be a person that has 360 degrees of wisdom, correct?
Okay.
Do we know anyone that would fit that description as being an island or having 360 degrees of wisdom?
I would say the minister fits that description.
And
the Honorable Elijah Muhammad and Master Farad Muhammad.
now, what is the square mileage of the islands?
1,900, 1,910,000 square miles.
1,910,000 square miles. What are the first four numbers of that actual fact?
1910.
1910.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So there's more to the numbers. There's more to the numbers.
Mm.
So if you look at 1877, you look at the 1910, the number that's highlighted in red, that's called an exponent, correct?
Yes, sir.
And what does the word exponent mean? One that expounds or interprets.
Mm.
One that champions, practices, or exemplifies. So now, who came to us to expound or interpret the Holy Qur'an for us? What year was he born, and what year did he come?
Yeah, 1877 born, first came 1910, we're taught, right?
Okay. So mathematical theology. So based on the mathematics, can we say there's a numerical connection between Al-Kitab, the Holy Qur'an, and the one that represents the Holy Qur'an in the modern time? Can we say that?
Yes.
If the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad is one with the Savior, Master Farad Muhammad, to whom praise is due forever, then does the mathematics apply to him also?
Yes.
If the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan is one with his father, could this represent him as well?
Yes.
Could this mathematics represent you and I?
Yes.
Any questions? Thoughts,
Wow.
questions, concerns,
I have
cognition?
a question. The calculation that you did to show us that bottom figure where it said to the power of 1877 and to the power of 1910. What calculation was it that you did?
That's called the power set. So what I did was you take the number of ayats in the Holy Qur'an, 6,236, and you place that as your exponent over the number 2. So 2 to the power of 6,236. To get 1910, I took all the ayats, but I added the bismillah, and that's 6,348. And then I did the same thing, 2 to the power of 6,348.
Right, but how would you do that on a calculator?
If you have a calculator, if you notice, if you have a scientific calculator, you see where you have a button that says where it says XY. If you have a scientific calculator, you'll have sine, cosine, tangent.
I have one that says YZ. Is it YX or YZ?
What is the bottom number? Is that the bottom number your X? Yeah, that's the button. Typically, the bottom number will be X, and the Y will be the number that's up as your exponent. Do you have that button?
Mine's the other way around. It has Y and then X.
Okay, that's fine. So what you do is hit the number 2, hit your YX button.
Okay.
And then type in 6,236. And you should get this long number, the letter E, and then a plus sign with 1877.
No, I got an error sign.
You got what?
It gave me an error.
That's because the number is probably too big for your calculator.
Okay.
Okay. Yes. Another way you can do it is if you use a calculator that's online, just use a scientific notation. They have like free calculators online. Just use one online, type in the number, you should get it. I use the one on my desktop, and that's the only way I couldn't do it on my phone. My phone will give me an error message. Sometimes the numbers are too large. It won't calculate it.
Okay. But that's the what you use to actually, and then so because I was wondering why it didn't just give you a number without an exponent attached to it.
Oh, because that number, that 1.67, boom, 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 that 1877 means there's 1,877 ciphers at the end of that number.
Okay, I see. That's what that means.
Yeah, there's almost 2,000 zeros. So if you were to write that number on a piece of paper, you'd probably take up almost a whole composition notebook just writing that one number.
All right, so a unit followed by 1877 ciphers.
Right, so that number that you see followed by 1,877 ciphers, possibly, if they're ciphers. They could be other numbers, but they're probably ciphers. So the power set of the Holy Qur'an is 1.67, that number, followed by 1,877 ciphers.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Oh, thank you for the question. Anyone else before we wrap it up?
Could that also be that number to the 1877 power?
No, that's what it is. That's the 1877 power.
Okay.
But that power is telling you basically that how many ciphers on that's why you use scientific notation. You use scientific notation to write extremely large numbers and extremely small numbers. Scientific notation is like shorthand. Okay. Certain numbers are too large. You know, you can write 76 quintillion miles out if you want, or you can say 76 times 10 to whatever the exponent is.
Yes, sir.
Okay. And to give you a quick, if you look at quintillion, the word quin means 5. Okay. The word quin means 5. And I'll give you this example. 6 sextillion tons, right? Mm-hmm. The prefix sex means 6. And when you take the prefix of a number, multiply that number by 3 and then add 3. So 6 times 3 is what?
18.
And then plus 3 is?
21.
And that tells you how many ciphers are in that number.
Oh.
Take the prefix, 6 sextillion. So I take sex is 6, times 3 is 18, plus 3 is 21. I know just by the prefix, I know there's 21 ciphers in that number. Mm. So if I say 76 quintillion miles, the diameter of the universe, quin Does anyone speak French? In French, I think 5 is 5. 1, 2, 3, 4 is 5. The root is quin. Quin means 5. So 5 times 3 is what?
15.
Plus 3.
18.
Okay. So 76 quintillion miles is the number 76 times 10 to the 15. Okay. One day we'll get into the scientific notation. But in scientific notation, one of the rules is you round everything down to one number. So instead of saying 76, we would say 7.6. As soon as you put that point in there, you have to add 1 to the exponent. So it'd be 7.6 times 10 to the 16. That's just scientific notation stuff. Questions, comments, thoughts, cognitions, wins, case gain, anything before we close it out?
I have a cognition and a win.
Mhm.
And in my journey, in my personal journey, I was led to go to the prayer service in Message to the Black Man. And the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, he, on page 138, he's speaking on Solomon's instructions to those of us who have been lost from our own. And it's regarding forgiveness for the sins that white people have put on us. You know, we are instructed to pray to the east, pray in a position, to the east. And that's in 2 Chronicles chapter 6, verses 36 through 39. So I read it, and sure enough, we're instructed to pray to the east for those who have been lost. And now we're found. And that's for us. Then he talks about, then on page 141, he mentions Jonah and how Jonah represents us as being lost in this country where we are, and how Jonah prayed to the Holy Temple, in the east, and he was delivered. That's how he prayed for his deliverance. And that's in Jonah chapter 2, verses 2 through 4. So I read it, sure enough. So I know I read those things before, but starting to read it again, I'm really seeing more into the power of prayer service, for us. And when you were talking about the 104 books, this is just my cognition on that. The 104 books, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad also talks in prayer service about verse 104, chapter 4, where it speaks about, prayer. And it speaks about, when we say our prayers, after we have made our prayers, we also say our prayers standing, sitting, lying on our backs, lying on our sides. But when we are free from danger, when we are safe, we keep up regular prayer at fixed times. And so with the 104 books, I saw verse 104. And then with the chapter 4, I saw the 2 to the second power, just taking the 2 and just powering it unto itself. And that's a 4, so I was just seeing that And it's just making me see how the power of prayer. So that's just a journey that, that I just wanted to share.
Oh, thank you, Sister Tina. When I look at the type of questions that you share, and I look at us probably about a year, maybe 2 years ago, when you were just starting to learn the PEMDAS, it's just like you can see how everyone is growing, and it's a beautiful thing to see. Thank you for that. Sister Ania, first derivative. You ready?
Before you do that, could I just ask Sister Tina a question?
Of course. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, she mentioned the prayer service in Islam.
Mm-hmm.
A message to the black man. Is that what she was referring to?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
And so is it page 104 or?
No, page 138, where he speaks about Solomon's instruction to us on pray to the holy temple, pray toward the holy temple for our deliverance. And that's page 138. Then on page 141, he talks about Jonah and how that is talking about us. It's a type of us here in America, in the belly of the fish. And he says Jonah, he mentions Jonah chapter 2, verses 2 through 4.
Okay, got it. Yes, ma'am.
Right. So Sister Ani, a prime derivative. In calculus, you have what's called a function, and a function is just an equation. Does that make sense?
Okay.
Okay. And what happens is in calculus by definition means change. So calculus, you're really studying change that's taking place on very small increments. Does that make sense? Changing on small increments. It's almost like the word makara, change things by degrees.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So what happens is in calculus, you can have an equation and that equation never changes. But based on whatever number you put in, you'll get a different number out. Does that make sense?
Okay.
You follow me so far?
Trying to.
Okay. So for example, if we took circumference, if we plug in the diameter of the Earth, we'll get out the circumference, correct, of the Earth.
Okay.
If we plug in the diameter of Mars, we should get the circumference of what planet?
Mars.
Okay. The equation doesn't change. The only thing that changes is the output based on what you put in. Does that make sense?
Okay.
Okay, that's like a function. The function doesn't change. But based on the change only takes place if you change the number going in, you change the number that's coming out.
Right.
Okay, so now when you have a function, if you plot this information over time, the derivative, or what's called the prime derivative, or what's called the first derivative, is a specific point. And that specific point can tell you the correct answer based on past, based on present, or based on future. Because that function will follow a trend. Does that make sense?
No.
If I have a trend that's based on time, okay, if time is my horizontal line, and all this line is all connected, that means I can go back to figure out what was the answer to this question in 1970. I can find out what the answer was in 1980. Depending on the year, there's a number I can plug in based on the year, and it'll give me what the correct answer was based on that year.
Okay.
So the correct answer in 1980 is not going to be the same answer in 1990.
Mm-hmm.
The function never changes. But time changes the output. So now I know the answer to this question in 1980. I can calculate what the answer was in 1990, 2000. I can calculate what the answer was in 2023, but then I can calculate also the answer in 2025, 2030, 2035. So when you're extracting a derivative, what you're able to do is you're able to know for a surety past, present, and future based on one equation. The teachings of the Most High Elijah Muhammad is the equation. Being able to find past, present, and future is called, the process is called differentiation or extracting the derivative. And when you calculate derivative, that's called the prime derivative. When you take the derivative of a derivative, now you have what's called a second derivative. In other words, the minister was the one that cracked the wisdom and was able to teach and is able to teach in past, present, and future. Does that make sense?
Mm.
He can tell us what was, what is, and what is to come. Yes?
Right.
Okay. Our job is to take what the minister is teaching and extract the second derivative from that. And I'll give you a quote I came across. It's a quote out of 7 speeches. And it says, Messenger Elijah Muhammad has said that all his ministers should study Minister Farrakhan's subject matter and draw from it in preparing their own subjects. Meaning what? We are the second derivative that's extracting from the prime derivative. We know the minister is the top student, correct?
Right.
Have we not also referred to him as the supreme minister?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So there's a mathematical concept there. And it just so happens that the word differentiation in Arabic, that word is Furqan.
Mm-hmm.
So the more we would get into calculus, the more if we had some math, something to look at, it would make more sense. We're trying to talk about a concept without the math. But in mathematics, it basically means being able to extract information based on past, present, and future. So in the mathematical language, on one level, I see the minister as the prime derivative. He extracted from the one that brought the equation.
Okay. So you said again, being able to extract. Could you repeat that sentence again?
To be able to extract wisdom based on past, present, and future.
Okay. But in mathematics, they would say being able to extract
a derivative.
Mm-hmm.
It's being able to pinpoint it's being able to pinpoint a specific point of information based on a large amount of information. You're getting a specific point in time.
Okay. Yes, sir.
So when people say that,
I can liken that to the time track.
Yes, because that's how I started studying the calculus on that level. I was looking at the time track.
Mm-hmm. Yes, sir. Okay.
Okay. So when people say the minister has changed the teaching, no, he hasn't changed. There's a difference between you change the teaching if you change the equation. The minister, all the minister did, speaking in mathematical language, he took the same formula, but he's able to extract wisdom based on past, present, and future. So he's not changing the teaching. He's showing how the teaching evolves with regards to time. That's a spiritual calculus, or a theology of calculus.
In Dianetics, or Dianetically speaking, then could we, on the time track, could we then say that the basic is the prime derivative?
Yes, Sister Ania. Yes, Sister Ania. Yes.
Then when we talk about a secondary,
you're talking about the second derivative.
Second derivative.
You can be saying that. Yes. Wow. Yes. Yes. Because now on that function, if there's a gap there, the gap is a point where you can't extract a derivative. So what would that be in Dianetics?
Mm,
If there's a part of the time track that you can't see, that would be what?
I don't know.
That's the engram. So if you're using the time track as what you're talking about, there's a gap in that function. You can't extract the derivative. That's where the engram is. So now you got to work to figure out what is in that gap.
Mm.
And then once you complete that gap, what have you just done? You have figured out what the derivative is in that empty spot.
Hence, closing the gap.
Yeah.
Mm.
Love it, love it, love it, love it.
Beautiful, beautiful.
Yes. I see you are getting over your mathematical engrams.
Well, because my issue was more so the teacher that I had.
And since you worked on removing that, it seems like everything else is starting to flow now. Am I correct on that?
Yes, sir.
Praise be to Allah. Praise be to Allah.
Praise to Allah.
All right, family. Any last words before we wrap it up? If not, we will go ahead and close it out. I will have this posted, God willing, this afternoon. I'll try to get on as soon as possible, and I'll start working on the next one, God willing. Brother Michael, you still with us? Is that Brother Michael, 678? Okay, I don't know who that is. That might be Brother Michael. Well, let's go ahead and close it out, family. It's wow. Typically, my goal is to do this in an hour and a half to 2 hours, but it never happens. But we'll work on it. All right, family.
Thank you, sir.
Huh?
Said thank you so much.
Oh, thank you, family. Thank you, family. This is my prescription. This is how I help maintain my sanity. But thank you for your time and your patience for being on for 3 hours. Attention prayer. I seek refuge in Allah from the accursed Satan. In the name of Allah, the Beneficent, the Merciful. All praise is due to Allah, Lord of the worlds, the Beneficent, the Most Merciful. Master the day of judgment in which we now live, the alone that we serve, and aid that we seek. Please, Allah, guide us on the straight path, the path upon whom thou hast bestowed favors, not the path upon whom thy wrath is brought down, nor of those who go astray if they've heard thy teaching. Ameen. Assalamu alaikum, family.
Wa alaikum salam.
Allah continue to bless us.